everyone. Welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Okay, I think we are far enough out from this event that we can actually start talking about it. You ready?
Okay. Sure.
What is your belief of Santa Claus?
Oh.
Did he come to your house?
Oh, really? You think I'm going to just dispel all myth and rumor about Santa Claus? Well, guess what? That is not in my belief structure. Nice try.
I was thinking about like Christmas. I was kind of like reflecting back on Christmas, and
yeah,
something like really stuck out. We watched the Polar Express. You know, like a few weeks ago, you and I talked about like our favorite movies, right?
Yes. Yeah,
and, just it stuck with me that the main, the ending of Polar Express, the lesson for the young boy who was doubting their belief in Santa. You know, remember his ticket? The guy would like punch the tickets, and there's like a word would be in there, and his was believe.
Oh yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so I really got thinking about like what is belief? Like what is belief, and like where do these beliefs come from, and like why are they important, and what is the usefulness of beliefs?
Well, and do we even know what our beliefs are?
Right.
Like, or are we consciously aware of them all?
So then when I was thinking about like Christmas and Santa, I'm like, because I loved when our kids were into Santa. Like I always joke, like my favorite thing to do is lie to children.
Oh my gosh. You're a piece of work.
But I'm like, that's kind of a joke. But
I know.
But like the whole like really amping up and sort of feeding into the kids' belief that Santa is real. I mean, like think of all the ridiculous things you've probably done as a parent to like perpetuate your kids' belief in something that's not real. I remember like putting tracks in the snow.
We did that too.
So, and like Easter Bunny stuff or Tooth Fairy stuff or any of this stuff that we make up as adults to convince our children that something is real. And we're totally manipulating like their belief system.
I remember when Mitchell was getting to be the age where he was being told by all of his friends that Santa wasn't real. And he came home and he was kind of devastated. And he said, "Mom, Santa's not real, is he?" And I said, "Mitchell, you will never hear me say that. I believe in the magic of Christmas, and Santa Claus is in that. You'll never, ever hear me say anything different," which to this day, I still say the same thing. And he goes, "Okay, fine. What about the Easter Bunny?" I think he was like 8. "Okay, fine. What about the Easter Bunny?"
So that's really interesting, right? Like he had a belief that like something was true. Then he was getting other information, maybe disproving or challenging that belief. And then at some point, he was motivated enough himself to start like asking questions, trying to figure it out himself.
That's a great example.
And then ultimately, his belief in Santa probably changed.
Maybe.
Oh no! Like he helps edit the pods. You might have just wrecked it.
Me? I didn't say anything. If you listen to the last 4 minutes, you'll notice that I've been extremely neutral and non-committal. Non-committal to your all in. No, I agree with you though, and I think this is a really great example of how at a young age or at some age, we have incorporated a belief of something. And there's a number of different things in our lives that this happens with, right? And I do agree with you. It's like we operate with that belief being real.
Yeah,
for sometimes the rest of our lives.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I was really questioning, like, where do these come from? How do they get formed? And how are they, like, playing out in my life today? And should I be challenging more of these beliefs? Should I not? Like, maybe it's all okay. I don't know. I looked up the definition of belief, of course.
Of course you did.
But it's pretty simple.
All right, let's hear it.
Acceptance that a statement is true or something exists. I mean, that's what we've been talking about. But the idea, like the acceptance part, like you just accept it. You maybe don't challenge it. You maybe don't even think about it very much. But you have just accept it.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a little different relationship with beliefs now than I did even 10 years ago.
How's that?
I think a lot of it is in working with people, because one thing that is crystal clear is that oftentimes people are operating under beliefs that are not true. But the only reason they believe they are is because they've told themselves that story for so long that repetitive and that nature of that habitual thinking makes them believe that it's true.
Yeah. So,
right? And that makes them believe.
So here, here's an example of a belief that maybe we share that's like a little less silly, like I won't say silly.
Okay.
A little less.
No, it's not
than
silly.
Santa.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, everything is less than Santa. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So
okay, I'll set that down now.
Growing up, like you grew up here in the United States, and if you are smart and work hard, you will get ahead. Do you think that's a true statement? If you are smart and you work hard, you will get ahead. That's how you succeed as an adult.
Yes.
Okay, so that concept is called meritocracy. That. So you excel.
Oh, you
excel by merit, right? And that's I feel like that's a fairly strong. It might not be universal, but it's a very strong American belief. You come to the United States.
Yes, I agree.
You're smart. You work hard. You get ahead. That's how it works.
Yes.
That would be
that's
a belief.
How it works. That's the American dream.
I don't actually think that's how society here works. I would challenge that belief. I challenge that belief because I don't actually think that's how it works. I think there's lots of people who are smart and work hard and do not get where they want to go. And that's not and not of no fault of their own, because there is a like system that they're operating in that is not fair. So the idea that you get ahead on merit is a false belief.
Yeah. Do you know what else is super interesting? I just realized this as you were saying this out loud. You know, as we find ourselves separating ourselves from other people, like creating pockets of judgment, expectation, and everything else like that. Like, okay, you take that's a core belief. What you just said is a core belief for a number of people, okay? Then you see people who are, that either marry into wealth or are born into situations in which favor is given. There is a huge gap there between those that believe in a merit-based world, watching other people in those, and there's so much judgment that happens because of that belief being so strong. Isn't that interesting? Well, that's another whole topic.
It is another whole topic, but this is
interesting.
This is where I'm getting to. Like, there are some fundamental ideas about like human behavior, our country, our society, all of these things that are so baked in that we don't actually even think about them like at all.
We even have comments and statements and phrases that we use all the time that are facilitating that consistent belief. For example, what are some of the phrases that you've heard about money? Money doesn't grow on
trees.
Right. right? The early bird gets the, right? The early bird gets the worm. Like there's a number of phrases that are proliferating these core beliefs that we have about working hard and about money. I think that's really interesting to consider.
These beliefs come from probably a lot of our upbringing, our childhood experience. I mean, they come from experience, right? Or they come from, maybe we were raised in a house that, was a certain way, or, maybe if you lived in a house that, had a very specific political belief, like you would just by default think that way. Not because it's good or bad, but it would just be like, I don't know, this is how it's always been, and this is how I think. And the question is, which things are important enough for you to stop and reform a belief around, or challenge what you believe?
So I went down the same path when you and I discussed this topic, or when we threw this topic out a few days ago, and I actually jotted down some of the consistent beliefs I think that we can bucket and start to think about a little bit, because I think we have beliefs that came from our family structure, where we were, our how we were raised. I also think it has to do with where.
Oh, totally.
Where the location. Northern Minnesota is where I was raised, and I can promise you, Northern Minnesota has such incredibly different ways of thinking about things than the metro. That's what we used to call it, Twin Cities, air quotes. Everything was the Twin Cities. But if you look at some of the big buckets of beliefs, I would challenge people to think about, do they even know what their beliefs are? And it would be like political, as you mentioned, money. But there's also, how are you supposed to act in your family structure? What are you supposed to be? Are you supposed to be married? If you're married, if you're supposed to be married, what are your roles in that marriage? What are your spouse's roles? What are your beliefs about those? I'm not asking for like people to say what they do. I'm asking, what do you actually believe about them? And like, how about like what you do for a living? And what are your expectations about people, or what are your beliefs about people that are in certain roles? Like, okay, let's talk about politics for 2 seconds.
We never talk about politics, you and I.
Right. No, I know. Well, we're not going to, we're still not, other than, what do we believe about politicians? Right? So we have all these kind of core beliefs that are running in the background. And I think some of them we're consciously aware of, but a lot of them we're not.
I agree.
And I think, yeah, right?
So the question is, like, the place I always will go to is, why do we have beliefs? Like, what part of the brain, why is it useful to our brain to have these beliefs?
That's a great question.
Even when you're asking like about like, what do you think about a politician? Like, what comes to mind when you think of a politician? Well, I started instantly coming up with a bunch of words that I would associate with a politician, but they're very stereotypical. And so I wonder if our beliefs also kind of stereotypes, and then the usefulness to our brains about beliefs might more be like a way to make sense of the world in a sort of like shortcut kind of way. Like, you can say like, oh, I can just bucket a whole pile of things into this belief, so I don't have to think about it so much. Right? That's what stereotypes are the same thing. Stereotypes are just kind of our brains being lazy and trying to make sense of the world as fast as possible.
Oh, that's a good podcast topic. Let's hold that and put that on our list. Stereotypes. That's a really good one.
But it's like our brain trying to make meaning of the world.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that it's our way of, exactly what you said. Because, I always say the brain is just a tool for comparison. The brain isn't creating anything new for us. The brain is simply comparing everything to something else to keep us, what I always call, in our centered spot, right? It's like, or not even our centered spot, but in our normal spot. What's normal for us? But I think that there's key times when that normal is no longer normal for us, right? Like, I think as we grow, we outgrow some of the beliefs that we have. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is how do we let go of some of the beliefs that we had to make room for the new ones that are more expansive and more how we are today.
No, that's a great idea. I was thinking about this idea that, like, is reality shaping our beliefs, or are beliefs shaping our reality? I think our beliefs shape our reality. So
100% agree.
For example, like, if I were to believe everyone is out to get me, I betcha everyone would be out to get me. But if I fundamentally believe that the universe is, like, in support of me and everything turns out,
everything's working out for you.
Everything's going to work out. So there's like a bit of belief and manifestation together. Like what you believe is going to create your reality. Yeah.
Oh, that's another good topic. Now I got to start writing this stuff down. You're like in a flow. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, I went on a personal journey, I would say probably 10 years ago, and it started with that whole John Maxwell team. I've talked about this before, but I had this belief that I wanted to develop myself, right? That I wasn't comfortable with how much money I was making. I was doing great, but I wasn't comfortable with that. I told myself I could be a lot more, do a lot more, have a lot more. And I wanted to surround myself with people who were also lifelong learners. Nothing is as it seems, right? Ever. But I learned so much in that journey, because it's probably about a 3 or 4 year journey, and it was a pretty deep dive. But like, some things really fundamentally changed for me during that. And like, for example, you just talk about money. We started talking about money at the front end of this, and I really believed. Well, I didn't know if I believed. My family really believed that if you don't have a college degree, you're not going to go
That's
anywhere.
Another great belief.
That's yep, right. And it was hammered into me forever.
Yeah, so you are walking around with this belief that you are not good enough because you do not have a 4-year degree. And because that's so ingrained in you, whether you were overly conscious of it or not, that's affecting your behavior and your actions.
Yes, and my feelings.
Yeah, and
my
feelings. Your self-worth and all sorts of things.
Right, exactly right. So that 3-year period of time, and I was already making great money. I was already doing a job I loved, but I didn't feel like I was. Right? So I would say that in that 3-year period of time, I really, truly did come to the awareness that belief was not real for me, right? And that was just one of many, many things that I learned in this kind of this self-discovery, right? And I think that sometimes when we do have these core beliefs from the time we're young, whether it comes from family or location or whatever, friends, friends, families, there does come a time when we have to evaluate if that fits us anymore. And I think the best way is if it doesn't feel right inside, like this belief, and if that belief makes you feel yucky.
Yeah, that's what I was...
then it's like, ooh, the guardrail isn't really fitting anymore.
Guardrail is a good way to describe a belief. It's trying to keep you safe, but it might not be anymore. I was going to ask you, like, so when someone challenges one of your beliefs, like how do you feel? Like, where do you sense that first? Because I think we've all come across conversations where maybe someone's not trying to be like a jerk or something, but they're really challenging something core to you, and you're like, I don't like this. Yeah.
So I want to hear what you say. So I'll give you my answer, but then I want you to answer that question too, because that's a really good one. You know what? Here's the deal. Several years ago, I'd get all up in their grill about it. 100%. I would be all in, like, you're wrong. Here's why. How can you be like that?
It's almost like it's so deep sometimes that it's a fight or flight response, right? And
yes, totally.
And you're going fight.
Yeah, exactly. But now I actually look at it as an opportunity. I'm interested. My grandparents, being ministers, have talked about them on the pod quite a few times, but they really were much more about accepting you where you were. and then helping you move to where you wanted to go. And included in that had to be a lot more objectivity and a lot less judgment. And I feel like as I've grown and matured, air quotes, that lack of judging has helped so much because I don't have that fight or flight anymore. I'll be like, oh, okay, here we are. So that's interesting. And I think it's interesting to hear other people's perspectives on things now. I never used to think that way, but I really do now.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to hear how people, and then the next thing that I do is I sort of weigh, like, are they asking for my help or are they just wanting to talk about what they think? You know, that's a huge thing. And then are they open to getting feedback? You know, so like I become a lot more curious now than I was a few years ago. How about you?
Yeah, I would say that very similar, but in my younger years, I'd be a much more like just dismissive of other people's opinions.
Yeah,
you know?
that's
like, oh yeah, whatever they believe in is stupid, so I'll just move on and not even worry about it, right? Like super dismissive.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it was challenging to you. That's the thing. It's like so many times when we're unaware, if we have a strong belief and somebody has an opposite strong belief, we end up feeling threatened.
Yep. And then so just like you, nowadays I'm way more curious. I just lean into it as a curiosity because even if someone has the opposite belief as I do, it's a very helpful to talk with someone with a opposite belief of yours because it helps you. It helps you actually like understand your own belief better. And it takes a little bit. I'd say it takes a bit of like emotional sort of maturity or around just being able to be in those conversations because they initially can be very triggering because we don't like to be challenged in the way we think or the way we see.
And we take everything personally.
So getting over that and then becoming very curious is helpful. And it's actually helped me understand myself way better. Like same here.
There's
way more growth in me talking with someone who has different beliefs than I do than the same beliefs. Yeah. If I talk to someone with the same beliefs, it's just like an echo chamber of like, oh yeah, we all agree. Okay, cool. It just doesn't help me grow.
Right. Let's go to lunch. One of the core beliefs that I didn't realize that I had was that I really love learning. Okay. I didn't really realize that I liked that. And I think the reason I didn't like it for so many years when I was younger is because of this whole premise of if you don't have a college degree, you're a loser. Nobody said that.
Like your belief
so
is
I put that in the same bucket.
The proper way to learn is through a proper institution. And your little running around the world and learning by falling down and trial and error and talking to people, that's not how you learn.
Yeah, that's not how you learn. And no one values that. Why should I?
No one gave you a fancy plaque to hang on like Melissa's College of Hard Knocks. No one printed that out and put it on your wall for you.
I sense a poster board coming.
I'm making you a diploma, the School of Hard Knocks diploma.
I'll hang it next to my big poster that you made that says this ain't our first rodeo, it's our second rodeo.
So
that's an interesting thing though, because I had this belief, but I didn't recognize that it wasn't what I thought it was.
The other thing that struck me is there's so many times where I will go defend a belief, but I don't actually believe it. Or you know what I mean? Like once I actually would think about it, I'm like, wait, why am I defending that? Like that's actually not even what I think. Like what I think and what I believe are actually kind of separate. Like if you're to say, like let's really think about like a topic, right? So like even you could take something a little bit, more polarizing, like the topic of abortion. I bet people have beliefs around abortion, but then if you were to take the time and actually try to gather as much information about the scenarios that people are in that create
your thoughts
and really like kind of take a more logical like view of it, you might have it might come to the same belief. That'd be great. Yeah. But it might not. And that's the part that I think is very interesting is do you take the time to challenge your own beliefs? But they're so reactionary. Like, this is what I'm saying. When someone challenges a belief, it's just like, boom, here's the reaction. Right. And we don't take that split second to think, like, do I actually believe that? Or am I just repeating something that's been put into me a long time ago?
Right. And I love that. I think that's really interesting perspective. And I just think as we're really dumping into our beliefs, I think it's really important to recognize when they don't serve us and to be able to say that's okay. Because we immediately judge ourselves too. It's like, well, I've always believed this. So what kind of person am I if I all of a sudden ditch a belief that I've had for so long? That must mean I'm not committed. I'm not loyal. I'm not.
I think we put this on your list because we can't talk about this right now, but we have got to talk about self-limiting beliefs. And I would really love to talk about if you come up with a new belief, like you could just like literally make one up. Like, what's your future you look like? And what's the line between belief and delusion? And so we should talk about that.
Yeah, well, actually, that's so funny that you said belief and delusion because I went to belief and reality.
Oh, that's funny.
What's the line between the two? Isn't that funny? Yeah, that's really good. I wrote that down. Delusion. Living in a delusional world and enjoying it.
Welcome to my reality. That's the place I like to live in.
JJ and Melissa's Playhouse.
Just one final kind of thought on belief. Like, we talked about how beliefs influence how we act. You know, you have some stories about how it's changed how you act. How we believe, I also think, changes how other people act. Like, if I think someone doesn't like me,
that's true.
That energy, that belief I have in my head actually creates a reality where they act, or if not they act, I perceive whatever they do in a light where they don't like me.
Totally.
So changing that narrative can be as simple as like, oh, I think that person doesn't like me. If you can flip that, this is where the delusion part comes in. Delusion first. This is delusion first coaching. It's a new technique.
Don't do that.
If you can flip that and say, no, that person does like me. Or if you actually use a different technique, if you kind of send good energy or good vibes, or you use like a loving kindness kind of meditation technique, you can actually flip your belief pretty quickly. Yeah. And then that relationship changes.
Right. I love that. And I would say, like, right in there too, it's a lot of times if the belief, it's so funny. We usually focus on the beliefs that don't feel good. Like, we focus on a belief when we're not feeling good about something or we're emotionally triggered. That's when our belief jumps in. However, we have all sorts of other amazingly good beliefs. So I always say in coaching sessions, give the positive equal time. So that's another strategy. It's give the positive equal time. So if you find yourself, that person doesn't like me, that person doesn't like, okay, so you've spent 5 minutes thinking like that. Now spend 5 minutes in the reverse of that. That person has a really nice way about them. Yeah. That person's very bright doing this, or they have a real skill here.
Absolutely.
Give the positive
equal time.
The other
thing that I was thinking about is that I think our beliefs really affect our health. I think if you believe you are going to get sick, that you are going to get sick. I think the mind holds an amazing power over your physical being.
100%.
And I'd say there's a sickness thing, but the one I would really like everyone to think about and challenge is what they believe their life is going to be like when they're older, when they're aging. What is life like for you, Melissa, when you are 85 years old, 90 years old? Are you frail? Are you weak? Are you just barely getting around? Like, are you watching TV? You know what I mean? Like, we've got these actually like these beliefs about what it looks like to be old.
Yeah, at our next stage of life, whatever that is. Yeah.
And that's one that I am very conscious about, not letting myself believe that I'm going to be an old, frail person. Like, I believe I am going to be like a active, adventurous old person.
Same here. Until I'm done, then
boom,
bam,
gone.
It'll be a single quick event and I'm out.
So
that's what I tell my family now, and they hate when I do that.
The problem is we see old people, we see our elders out there, and they're stiffer than us, they're weaker than us, and you start believing, that is the path. That is my inevitable path.
See, I don't believe like that at all.
Well, good for you. I bet a bunch of other people
There's where we pivot.
Believe that, because that's what we see.
That's where we pivot. Yeah, sometimes. But that's changing. So
it
is again.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. That's interesting. All right. Well, hopefully we've given people a lot of stuff to think about. This has been a really fun. I feel like we could talk about this for another 3 hours.
This could be a super deep dive. I agree. Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.